Huomenta. Äänentoisto toimii, niin mä vaihankin saman tien heti kolmannelle kotimaiselle. Ihan tämmöisen yleisen suvaitsevuuden nimissä täällä on ehkä vieraskielisiä. So I'll be presenting in English in the spirit of most inclusiveness. So my topic today is cybercrime today. And I've got 20 minutes, which is ample time because this is a very simple subject, as we all know. So we have 2 years to go. So this is the future that they actually promised us. We were supposed to have flying cars, supposed to have cool, sexy robots and all that stuff. So still waiting. But as we're living in the future, and the future is nearing us all the time, this is actually what we got. You can actually now control your garden hose by yelling at it. A lot of dads are very happy about this. But this is just to highlight the fact that we are living in a world of infinite complexity. We are taking very simple things as a garden hose and adding a lot of complexity on it, which is just what our world is going to look like in the future. And then we have other simple things like, yeah, you can yell at it, it's beautiful. We have other simple things like toasters, which for some reason we add a lot of complexity to. This is a smart toaster. I was wondering why it's so smart, but you can get an app on your iPhone to see what your toast is going to be like. I don't think you can actually print images to it yet, but I'm sure that's in the works. But you might not know this, but this is actually a security device. At least you can use it as a security device because you can use to secure an Android phone in 30 seconds. It's very good. So what does this all have to do with cybercrime? Well, it's just to paint you a picture of the world that we're living in and the world that the criminals are also operating in. So cybercrime is now, well, in 2015, it surpassed all other crime. It's using new methods for old technology and old methods for new technology. And criminals don't have any rules. So they're always one step ahead because they can break the rules. That's why they're criminals. And they also find beautiful networking opportunities. So it's just not us, it's also the criminals, and they can do it online. It's truly global. So I'll just show you a couple of the current trends that we're seeing. We have social attacks, like business email compromise and phishing, and then we have technical attacks like ransomware, distributed denial of service attacks, and massive information leaks. And I think the mega trend here is the social attack, so I'll tell you a little about it. First of all, there's a bunch of social engineering triggers that the criminals are using. They are using these to influence your decision making. They will use the negative ones to cause you to act before you think, and they will use the positive ones also to work with your motivations. You might think about financial gain when somebody from Nigeria sends you a letter and tells you that there's $100 million in gold doubloons under a crocodile somewhere and they need your help to get it to Finland to safety. They might use your trust and status when they're doing business email compromises. Or they might scare you with financial loss, social pressure, like when they call you up and say that I need your help right now or else we're all in trouble. I need your password, please, quickly. So be careful about this. Because these are the triggers that the criminals are using when they are sending you emails and asking for your money. Because at some point, the criminals realize that the easiest way to get money from somebody is just to go and ask them. But you have to ask in a very specific way. No reason to bang your head against the firewall somewhere or try to bypass an IPS system when you can just send an email and say that you're the CEO of a company. And this is very urgent, it's confidential, I trust you, don't tell anybody, but this 300,000 has to go to China today. And you wouldn't believe how well this works. And this is a low-tech attack. This is a web form that you can find with Google, and you can send these messages all day. As you can see, you can designate the from name and from email. These are just header fields on an email. So the law says how much, well, I'll talk a little dollars because that's usually a good way to put this into context. It's a couple of billion a year in the world, and this is just what was reported to the FBI. And you can believe that most people who get victimized don't report stuff to the FBI. Just a little tiny sliver of what this is costing the world. And this is just business email compromise, sending these fraudulent messages. Then there's, of course, phishing, which is basically just credential theft. Because as we develop our cybersecurity controls and we build new devices and put up firewalls, we still have the guy who has the key to all those systems. So the easiest way to get through a lock is to get the key. And phishing is just asking for the key. And basically, there's a lot of situations where you actually need your password and you need your username and you need to give them to somebody and they just have to prompt you using those emotional triggers that I mentioned earlier. So it could be opportunistic. They send hundreds of millions of messages asking for Apple IDs, and that's how celebrity nude pictures get into the internet. Or they can target you, especially if you're a CEO of a big company. They'll go on your Facebook page, they'll read your Twitter like the Bible, and they'll find out everything about you. And if they have that information, they are able to create a phishing message which will be very alluring for you. Because how would an attacker know all this stuff about me? Well, Facebook, of course, you tell it everybody. And communication is key here also. Because probably most of us heard about what happened with the Democrats during the election. The head of their campaign fell for a phishing email, which allowed the criminals to release the emails affecting the election. So he asked the IT guy and he said, it's legitimate, just go ahead, but he meant illegitimate. Like, whoops. So be careful. This is a pretty typical phishing email that you get. It's a receipt. It's for MacKeeper Premium for $60 US. And what happens when somebody receives a message like this? Well, their first reaction is like, what? I didn't do anything. I didn't buy this software. I don't need it. I'm not even an Apple customer. Well, then it doesn't work. But if you are an Apple customer, you have an iPhone and a PC, your first thought is, of course, that somebody stole my account. Well, the attacker was pretty smart. They know what you're thinking, so they put this recovering my account button here. The most prominent visual aspect of this message is here, and it's directing you to click that. And when you click that, you end up here. Looks pretty legit. And if you don't know or realize to check the URL, it's cmv.com.br. It's in Brazil, it's not apple.com. Well, that's your only telltale sign here that this is not legit. It's right here. And it's HTTPS, so when somebody told you that if there's a lock there, you're safe, well, that's not true. That's just miscommunication. That just means it's encrypted, so the credentials that you're giving to the criminal are safe from other criminals. But there's a couple of telltale signs here, of course. They always have these. Like, who's Mr. Clients? Apple knows my name very well. I've been a customer for several years. And when I buy something, I pay with euros. And the third thing, which should jump right out, is like, when did you last get a receipt that has a recover my account button on it? It's a receipt. It's not supposed to be there. But they know what you're thinking. And they're breaking your OODA loop. They're making you jump into conclusions and act before you think. So this is all gone. They're just dying to be faster than you, and they make you pull your emotional triggers and make you make mistakes. So the only way to combat this is to be aware. And then we have the technical attacks. These are, in my opinion, a lot more boring, because these are just software like ransomware. But ransomware has been very prolific because I think it's the first malware that actually has a very solid business model. It has a way of making money to the people who are writing ransomware software. Just gets your data, encrypts it, and then ransoms you for the key, basically holding it hostage. Doesn't even steal anything, it just encrypts it in place and dangles the key in front of you. I mean, you have to pay in Bitcoin. It can be opportunistic or targeted, just like phishing. They can send like low ransom messages, like try to infect as many people as possible, or they sneak in the middle of the night into your infrastructure, encrypt everything, and then you're in trouble because then they're asking for 2 million. You have to be very careful with this. It's like the difference between a pandemic flu and a rifle shot to the face. And there are a lot of variations. And as we can see with the latest developments with NotPetya and WannaCry, I'm sure every presentation in the cyber world has this picture now. I was in Europe a couple of weeks ago, and I saw this picture 7 times in different slides. So everybody knows this is WannaCry, this is NotPetya, and this is, I think, CryptoLocker. So same motive, not the same motive, I mean the same method of attack, encrypting data. This, experts now believe, was North Korea trying to get rich. This is criminals trying to get rich, and this is some unknown person causing a lot of damage, because when we analyzed this, we quickly realized it's not a criminal scheme, it's just a tool of destruction. There's no way to get your data back once it's encrypted. So it's cyber sabotage. There's a lot of variations because, well, the basic way it works is the same all the time. You just encrypt stuff and then sell the key back. So once you realize that this is a good business model, you can just make your own version. You can even buy this as a service, go to the darknet and get your customized ransomware and then just spread it around, and the person who is hosting the service takes a cut. It's capitalism at its purest, basically. Because no rules are applying here. And then we have the DDoS attacks, which, in my opinion, are the lamest of cyber attacks. They're basically just vandalism. It's like breaking windows. You choke a network resource with excess traffic. That's basically it. But usually they say website, but this can be anything. This can be any internet-facing network resource. And a lot of companies, especially if you're a big company, you have legacy stuff there that is facing the internet, and you don't probably realize that a DDoS attack to this IP address might have effects that are not readily noticeable, like a down web page. You could have all sorts of troubles from a DDoS attack. And if an attacker actually does their homework and looks at your network and realizes that this is a potential attack target, they can cause a lot of havoc with this. And this can be used as a diversion, but this has no real good inbuilt business logic to it. You can always ransom people, say that I'm going to DDoS attack you if you don't pay us, but that really didn't pan out that well. Doesn't have the same stature as ransomware today. But you can always buy this as a service too. They have booters online, like websites where you can go and you can get a free sample. You can boot some website off the face of the earth for 15 minutes or 5 minutes. So you can see that it actually works, and then you just get a stolen credit card. So you can rent it. You can buy it with PayPal or pay with Bitcoin. You have gold, diamond, and lifetime bronze, 10 years. It's actually pretty good. They have tech support 24/7 here. How many of your companies does that? They actually answer you when you talk to them. They've created this kind of a cargo cult shadow business world under here, because they've noticed that a lot of the things that we do in the business world actually work in the dark business world too. So why not give customer support? You're competing with other DDoS booters. So and of course then we have the Internet of Things, which is creating the bots, or at least providing the foot soldiers for the armies that are taking down websites right now, because they are not very well protected. It's basically, I think Mikko Hyppönen said it's like looking at the world in 2000, like computer security. The state of computer security in 2000 is the state of computer security. Is this me or you? Well, anyway, the problem with the IoT is that when we put everything on the internet and give it an IP address, those IP addresses become targets for hackers, especially if your devices are speaking directly to the internet. There's going to be a lot of vulnerable stuff there for criminals to scan and attack. And we saw this with Mirai. We saw something brewing up with Reaper. And the armies that these IoT devices make up, they have a lot of firepower. They can take down like DIN, which is the DNS service provider that had Twitter under it. So you can shoot down Twitter if you have enough bots. Sorry about the technical problems. There we go. And we still see today that we can plug whatever we want into the internet, but I'm not sure this is going to be a state of affairs that will continue. Probably someday there will be more regulation on what you can plug in, that you have to make sure that it's secure. Now the onus is on the buyer. You have to ask the guy from Antti that how much updates is this IP camera getting, and when's the last update released, and is this secure, and how secure it is. So basically, a lot of these things, they're getting radicalized. They're joining underground criminal networks and attacking at random. I don't call that smart. And, well, not a week goes by without a massive data breach. And we might sometimes wonder that, okay, we have all this data here, it's not interesting to anybody. It's not necessarily customer data. We don't store credit card information, but all information is valuable to somebody. It's at least valuable to your competitors, and it can be like a hired job, like go there and get me this data. And data is being stolen because of its resale value, because very little data has implicit value, except personally identifiable information like social security stuff where you can use it to do identity fraud. But when you have 130 million American identities, you're not going to steal 130 million identities yourself. You're going to just split it up and sell it to other criminals. You can build a logistics network with it. And then there's the question that we asked one day when we caught one Finnish hacker that had hacked over 100 services. He had a bunch of databases on his computer. And most of the people who got breached didn't even notice. The first they heard of it was when we called them and said that, hi, we have your database. Did you know it's missing? And they just said, oh, it's still here. Sir, you're not understanding me. We have a copy of it from 2 weeks ago. So would you notice? Why not? This is what it looks like when you put it in graphics. There's a bunch of those. There's informationisbeautiful.net. If you want to lose your sleep, you can just go there and check it. You can sort it out by organization, method of leak. Red is hacked and green is accidentally published. Like accidentally published. Like, how do you control for that? Well, it's a lot harder than controlling for hacks, because somebody has to work with that information, and when they make a mistake with it, put it on a USB key, and then whoops, drops it somewhere, and suddenly it finds itself on the internet. You're in trouble. So what does this all mean? I'd like to talk about this subject for you for a couple of hours, and I can actually give you something concrete to take home. But basically, when you're defending, calculate your cost-benefit ratio and protect your assets accordingly. Don't waste time protecting and wasting money on something, the newest, fanciest gadget, but get your culture fixed up. Like, train your people. Train those people, because your people are your best intrusion detection system. And your people are the front line, and usually they are also the target of the attack. So when your people know that this message is suspicious, it has already passed all your filters. It's inside your network. And the key question then is what happens after that. And if your people don't know, or if they're scared, if they are apt to jumping and doing things in a bad way, like going and getting their triggers pulled, you're going to have a lot of problems. And when something happens, hire professionals and do it right away, because the professionals know what you're not supposed to do, and then they know what you have to do after that. Because often we notice that when you call the professionals in to help you with a breach, a lot of stuff had been done on those networks that had detrimental effects. A lot of log files were missing. Well, we cleaned the infected computer. Well, we turned everything off. We took it offline. We only have logs for 15 minutes, and this thing happened 3 months ago. So that's a bad situation to be in. Whether you're talking about a CERT team from outside or the law enforcement. That's basically it. Thank you.